So a great leader, a great dad is always going to try to help you have your own relationship with God so that you'll actually be self-sufficient. He's teaching you how to fish. He's teaching you to go to the one who actually created you.
But God's not afraid of your complaints.
No,
Just turn them upward. And when you complain to people, you get pity. When you complain to God, you get his power.
When you are seeking positivity, it will lead you to your source. And what is your source? A loving God.
Church is us coming together, that we would spur each other on to what? To do good works? What? To be moral? Those things are byproducts. We spur each other on to know God.
I was trying everything and nothing was working. Meditation wasn't working. I couldn't get rid of this pain that I had in my soul. And I think that pain exists for a reason, because God is showing you you're seeking something that can only be found in Him.
Hey, it's Rich, and you're listening to the Mature Me podcast, weekly content devoted to all things life, leadership, culture, and faith. Thank you for taking some time to tune in. Make sure you subscribe and follow us on all our social channels so you don't miss a thing. Let's listen to today's episode.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Mature Me on the Move. As you know, this month we are on the road to VOUSCon. We are in the middle of this 40-day journey, 400 miles. The team is out here running all across the state of Florida. But this is the podcast that we talk not just about growing old, but growing up. Because how many of y'all know it's not about who you are today, it's about who you're becoming tomorrow. And so we're all growing, we're all becoming that. And so on this pod, I always talk to friends and different people that I think are leading a personal life of growth, that are helping others grow. And what's been fun about being on the road right now, by the way, if you're not at VOUSCon, we're right there, man. You can still sign up, VOUSCon 2025, come be with us. They're going to put some B-roll or something right now on a great QR code. Guys, put the QR code, get registered. But what's been cool about being on the road is that I've been able to meet up with different ones of my friends all across the state of Florida. And they've been joining me on this Airstream trailer. This is not our normal studio, but it's becoming a home, and I'm enjoying the home. And today we have one of the greats. This is someone who I've looked up to for so long from afar. We got to talk about the first time that we met, but he is a best-selling author. I'm talking about he's sold a whole lot of books. And he coaches. He coaches people. He's known for positivity. He's known for energy. Two of his books really, really impacted my leadership and my life. We're going to talk about it today. And he's so gracious to come out to the middle of nowhere. Every time we park this thing, we're out in an RV park. So we're inviting guests out into an RV park, which is so strange because you have to go through 2 different guard gates and pay a fee and yada, yada, yada. But I'm talking about the one and the only. He's got a brand new book out as well, which is cool. Jon Gordon is in the house, friends.
Rich, great to be with you. And I've never done a podcast in an Airstream before.
Well, it's funny because I actually tried to get you one time when you were in Miami. I think we were trying to work it out. I think we were in Colorado at something. And then you were going to maybe come down to Miami for a Heat game.
That's right.
I was like, come do Mature Me. You were down for it, but the dates didn't end up working out. So I brought Mature Me to you, my friend.
Even better.
Had to get out here to Florida, out in the middle of nowhere, to get you to somehow graciously come by and say, welcome to my home, the Airstream. It's a nice Airstream, though,
It's a nice Airstream. I have no idea where we are.
Yeah.
So it seems like a little dangerous.
Yep. It is.
You don't know what's happening around here.
There's
right
some
now.
interesting characters around
Exactly.
here. When you go down to campgrounds, by the way, just my short experience of being on the road here a little bit, and I don't stay all the time. I just come in and out a little bit. Bro, there are some interesting folk. There's some people that this is a lifestyle.
Yeah. And the stories they probably have are amazing. Wouldn't it be great just to go interview them by now? Like, hey, what's your story?
In fact, maybe we'll make a documentary about people who live on RV parks, because it is a subculture. And I would say it's a calling. Some do it for a night. Others say it's a lifestyle.
Definitely. It's not for me.
The cross chose me, Jon. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great, brother. So great to see you. I want to say this because it's true. I really believe you're one of the greatest communicators on the planet.
When you say this to me, Jon,
I say it to you all the time.
It encourages me so much, but I think you're crazy too.
And I mean it. I love the way you communicate. I love listening to you. And I love how dynamic you are, your content. I just appreciate you.
It means a lot from anyone. It means a whole lot from you. And I think that you're also one of the greatest communicators I've ever heard, but you're also just the best encourager. I think that you operate in such a space of humility. I think people that can encourage people tend to be humble people. You know what I mean? That like it puts courage in other folks. And I've always said encouragement is one of those things that's free to give, priceless to receive. And when people do that, it just shows self-confidence, shows contentment. And so I appreciate you saying that. When was the first time we met? Do you remember it?
Yeah, it was your dad brought me in to speak
Yep.
at your church. He reached out because he read the no complaining rule,
which is a fire book.
and he used it with your church. And this was the first time I ever heard that churches had complaining in them, because I wasn't a believer until I was 35 years old. So I wrote The Energy Bus, my first book.
Love that book.
And then wrote the no complaining rule right afterwards. So I was a new believer, only a few years being a Christian, and I write the no complaining rule. And then your dad reaches out. It was the first time a pastor of a church reached out to me and said he was using this book. And I said, there's complaining in churches? He said, oh yeah, John. Oh yeah, there's a lot of complaining. I'm like, really? Aren't they supposed to be the most positive people on the planet? Like, they're Christians. He goes, well, let me tell you about church culture. And explained to me how it worked. And he said, come down here, speak to us, and talk about the no complaining rule, and just bring your positivity with you. And I got a chance to obviously spend time with your dad, met you there, spoke to the church, again, a new believer, and your dad brought me in to speak. What an incredible honor at the time. I look back, I had no idea who your dad was, and now I know. And I go, how did I get chosen? How to be God? Like, I think about what God has done in my life since. And that was such a huge part of my journey, of your dad bringing me there and saying, hey, I want you to be a part of this. His belief, his confidence in me early on has meant so much. And I still think about it to this day.
That's so, like, honestly, like, kind of mind-boggling to me, because let me just give it to you from the other side. I don't know what year this would have been, but I'm going to say anywhere from 2009 to 2012.
2009.
You think it was 2009?
Yeah.
Okay,
2009,
perfect.
2010.
There we go. So it's 2010. You, from our vantage point, are a best-selling author. Like, we see your books.
Right.
We see your books at Barnes & Noble, bro.
Right.
Like, it's got like accolades and awards. People actually read this book. Like, you actually built a house from this book.
Right.
Okay. Like,
That's
a lot of people write stuff. I've written some stuff and it didn't build me a house. But I just remember, like, you know, when your culture is on a church staff, the fact that dad somehow got Jon Gordon, this, you know, completely accomplished author, to come speak to our staff on a Monday morning. We're all like, we've got a celebrity here at the staff meeting. And this is a guy that speaks on all sorts of stages, but takes time to come and speak to our church staff. So it's just funny, because, like, for you, it's like, it's a blessing. For us, we never had a bigger speaker in our entire life.
That's cool. Back in the day. Yeah, you guys were just getting going. And I remember your dad even saying about you, hey, yeah, Richie, he's going to be great. He's going to have his own church one day. He's going to make a difference. He's going to share the word. He's going to share a message. He's going to be so powerful. And I met you. I'm like, oh yeah. But then to see what's happened since, so cool.
That's so cool, man. I love that we have that long time.
Yeah.
I've kind of watched your story continue to unfold, and you're just doing great things. You just did an event with all these coaches, and it is amazing. I mean,
It was unbelievable. Sean McVay, Dabo Sweeney, Eddie George, Trent Dilfer, Mac Brown, Matt Rule, Corey Close, the women's basketball coach at UCLA. I mean, off the charts in terms of Kevin O'Connell, who won Coach of the Year with the Vikings. So all these coaches coming together. Then we had Jim Rome, the broadcaster, Jay Glazer, all to talk about leadership, business, sports, and faith. It was a vision I had years ago, shortly after coming to visit you guys. I had a vision for a book training camp, and also eventually an event that would unite it all together.
how do you bring all those that's a lot of personalities. That's a lot of leadership, power, strength. And these are all incredible men and women, but you're still dealing with a whole lot of this and that. Yeah. And how do you bring them together? How'd you do that?
They're all humble, great people. These are the best coaches on the planet. These are people who have strong faiths. They're definitely strong believers. They're incredible men and women of integrity. And they're just like, hey, how can I serve? And I want to hang out with the other coaches, is what they're saying. So they're coming to hang out with each other and also to share. But I had this vision, because over the years, I've spoken to a ton of training camps, starting with the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2007, and Jack Del Rio was the head coach. And how that happened was wild. How that even happened. How I got started doing this.
I'm scared of that, man.
Crazy. Oh, he was scary. Again, the Energy Bus just comes out. I'm about 36, 37.
Okay.
Never spoke to a college team, a pro team, or a high school team. And Jack Del Rio calls me up and says, hey, come meet with me down here at the stadium. And I go meet with him. I'm sitting across from him. He's intimidating. He's Jack Del Rio. I'm a nobody. And he says, I read your book. I loved how you talked about energy vampires, because I allow these energy vampires to drain me.
I've used that language forever.
Especially the media. He said, you really helped me deal with them. I have to be more positive than the negativity that I face. And when he said that, I thought, wow, I wrote something that could actually help this pro coach. That's unbelievable. He goes, will you speak to the team? I said, I'll speak to the team if you give everyone a copy of the book. I don't know why I said that, but I did. I was bold. He goes, done. I'll get everyone in the organization a copy because I want every player to be interacted with positive energy. So I want everyone in the organization who's touching our players in some way, whether it's the training staff, the weight room staff, whether it's the food service folks, whoever, the janitors, they got everyone a copy of the book so that they all shared positive energy with the players. And they had a magical season that year. And that actually caused me to take off with all of these coaches and teams as different coaches started reaching out. Mike Smith was the defensive coordinator. He got the job with the Atlanta Falcons as the head coach. Yep. Said, I want to do the same thing. Come to the Falcons. Matt Ryan was a rookie quarterback. This is how long ago it was. Then I spoke to University of Texas football. Colt McCoy was a senior, was during his senior year. And then next thing I know, I start going to all these different teams and organizations. Dabo Sweeney had me come speak. So this event is the culmination of pouring out and being there for all these coaches when they reached out saying, hey, we need your help. Will you help me?
There you go.
Will you help my team? And I was always on the phone with these coaches, helping them, encouraging them, going to speak to their teams. They read the books. We developed a relationship. And I never asked for anything.
Yeah,
I constantly served. I saw it as a ministry. Even though I wasn't in the ministry, I saw it as a way to just serve them and encourage them and be there for them. And all of those relationships culminated now in this one event where everyone came together. And I actually thought about that. I thought, you couldn't put this together unless you had done this for over 20 years like I have. 20 years of relationship building, of investing has led to this one event where they all said yes. I don't think anyone could get all these coaches in one room. And I don't mean that from an arrogant standpoint. I mean it from a service standpoint. It shows the power of service.
No, and it's like, how did Jon do it? Well, it didn't happen overnight.
No.
It happened over time. And it's always that idea that you give before you ever get anything, before you ask really anything.
I wasn't even thinking about, if I do this now, in 10 years, I'm going to have a training camp event and you're going to come speak at it. No, I just was giving because you never know what's going to happen in the future. You just give to give. It really is a cool example of 3 principles. You love, you serve, and you care. You love, you serve, and you care. You do that and you'll experience exponential growth in your life, spiritually and also financially as well. It does really lead to financial success and also impact if that's what your approach is.
I think one of the things that, as you're saying this, like that comes to my mind, like often as a preacher, people will also be like, when have I stepped out of relationship into religion? And I think that's just maybe cultural language that we all understand, which is there's the law and there's the spirit of the law. And I always think that, you're in the stream of the gospel when it comes down to your motivation. And that's the hard thing to check, right? Yeah. Jesus is always talking about the heart. And so if the intention is to give to get, well, then you've already lost it.
Right.
If the intention is to serve to be great, well, I think you've already lost it. It's about what you just said. Say those again. It's love, serve, and care.
I actually wrote a book called The Carpenter. And those are the 3 greatest success principles and strategies of all. If you actually just focus on loving, serving, caring. I work with a lot of businesses, right? And I always say, don't focus on trying to grow your business. Focus on loving, serving, and caring, and your business will exponentially grow. Look at your Church of Who. You focus on loving and serving caring, and it exponentially grew because you have the right intention.
It's amazing though, as I talk to young leaders, they sometimes have a hard time with this because it's like, okay, so if I do this, I'm going to get that. It's like, you can't focus on that. You have to stay here. I can't even allow you to go there. You need to stay right here in the loving, serving, and caring part.
The young leader part, you and I were talking about this in terms of leadership. Today, everyone's talking about scaling.
Yes. So
they want to do now is they want to actually scale. They want to get in. I want to grow my business. I want to take it to an IPO. I want to make a fortune. I want to get bought out by private equity. That's their goal now. And that's actually a challenge because everything's about scaling and you're losing the personal customer service. You're losing the relationship with your customers. You're losing what actually makes a business successful. If you invest in the root, you'll get a great supply of fruit. If you focus on the fruit of the tree and you ignore the root, your tree will die.
Preach.
It's that simple.
Preach. Is it kind of a funny experience being 36? And we need to put a photo up right now of Jack Del Rio because not everyone here listening knows who this man is.
Right.
This man is a picture of energy.
Yes.
I mean, that's just one of his qualities, but this guy is a force. And you write a book. It's one thing to write it. Now you have to stand in front of a guy who kind of like embodies energy. And it's like, hey, teach me about energy. You're like, oh, okay, Jack. Is that kind of a funny spot to be in? Like, is that intimidating? Like,
yeah, we'll just sit across from him was intimidating. And the funny thing is, here's a behind the scenes thing. I'm walking down to speak to the team. I never spoke to a team before.
Which is not an easy thing, by the way. I've done a couple chapels.
No.
It's like, this is the graveyard of speaking.
Yes, it is hard. It is hard.
How are we feeling?
I was a former athlete. So I was a Division I athlete in college. I played lacrosse at Cornell University. So I know what it's like to be in a locker room, but never spoke to a team. So I'm walking down the aisle of the team meeting room. And as I'm walking by Mike Tice, about 6'6", he's an assistant coach from Long Island. He's like a legend on Long Island. I'm walking by him and he goes, Strong Island. As I walk by, I'm from Long Island, and he says Strong Island, which means he knew I was from Long Island. But as I'm walking by in my Brioni suit, you don't wear a Brioni suit to a team where they're all wearing sweats and everything, but I wear a Brioni suit, and I walk by and I hear Strong Island. What is he talking about? And it just caught my attention, almost got me out of my serious mode in a good way. And I went up there and I went, blah, 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 blah. I don't even know what I said. Don't even remember what I said, but I think I talked about don't be an energy vampire, got to be positive, got to bring it, I just was fired up. And when I was done, Maurice Jones-Drew came up to me, who, again, Hall of Fame running back, just an amazing guy. Fred Taylor was on that team, unbelievable guy. These were guys who I watched on TV, and now they're like in that room. They came up to me, hey man, really love what you said. That really spoke to me. And after that, I thought, okay, I got this. Maybe I could do more of this. It's funny how God puts you in places. And I think the lesson here for people listening, like, never expected to be there. God put me there in that moment, made the most of that moment, and then said, okay, I think I can do this. And then started to speak to more and more training camps over the years. But again, it wasn't my goal, it wasn't my intention, but the fact that it happened was a wonderful thing. Now I realize it was part of my calling to be able to speak into these coaches and their lives, to be there for them, to be a counselor for them, to be a confidant for them, and to help them through their challenges. And what I realize my mission is now, I know it so clearly, it's to develop positive leaders who make a positive impact in every business, school, team, organization, and community around the world. And what I've become the best in the world at is helping leaders build stronger teams. That's what I realized. Oh, that's why I'm here. Helping leaders build stronger teams. But I didn't realize this literally until I'm 53 years old. So I've been doing all of this, but now I finally realized, oh, that's actually what I do really well. That's why I'm here. Now I'm leaning into it more than ever for the next 20, 30 years of my life of maturing as I get older. That's what I know I'm going to do.
It's a beautiful gift when you're able to kind of figure out what the tip of the iceberg is, the tip of the spear is, going, this is what my target is. I've been able to zero in, clarify.
Yes.
But once again, that doesn't just come, it takes some time to work those things out. I definitely want to talk to you a little bit today about communication, because I feel like you step into all sorts of spaces and you thrive and you win. I speak, for the most part, to the same congregation, the same community. There's a lot of buy-in. We're going to get to that because I've got a lot of fun questions I want to learn about. What do you do when you go into a locker room and you're trying to get someone's attention? But maybe just let's back up a little bit, because I don't think I really know much of the origin story of like how you even wrote your first book. How did you become how does one become an author? You went to school, you're an athlete. Talk about where you grew up, your family, and a little bit of getting into that first book.
Yeah, I grew up in Long Island, New York, Jewish Italian family. A lot of food, a lot of guilt. And my dad was a New York City police officer, undercover narcotics.
Dear God.
And so he was shot a few times. I always joke, he wasn't very positive, but a very loving man, a loving dad. And he was actually my stepfather, technically. But he was my dad. He raised me since I was 5. My biological father left when I was a year old. So had a single mom for a little while. Then she marries my dad. And he says, I want you to call me dad, and I'll treat you as my own. And he did. And he was a great influence in my life and a very loving man. I really believe that I would find faith later on in my life because I had a loving father who I felt his love, even though I felt abandoned by my biological father. So now I'm a college lacrosse player, go to Cornell University, graduate, and I moved to Atlanta. And I just moved down there to create a life, because I did not get into the law schools I wanted to get into. Had a girlfriend in Houston. We broke up. That's a whole other story. Came back home. I'm waiting tables in New York, feeling like a failure. I've pretty much like lost my future. All my friends are working on Wall Street. I literally thought my life was over. And I said, I got to figure something out. And I literally drove down to Atlanta with a high school friend and started waiting tables down there. Next thing you know, I get a bartending job. Next thing you know, I buy a bar in Buckhead because I met the owner. And I said, hey, would you ever sell your place? He said, everything's for sale. Got some investors together because I didn't come from money and bought this bar in Buckhead. I started a nonprofit and we're raising money for youth-focused charities. So I'm moving and shaking, meeting all these people, and I'm getting all these people involved in this charity that we started called the Phoenix Organization. And it was really cool. Got involved with the mayor, got involved with people in city council, got involved with all the young professionals. And I would basically meet them at the bar and then get them to be involved with our volunteer activities. It was almost like a church kind of outreach.
Yeah.
But we weren't a church, but it was a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And never took a dime. Always gave every dime we raised to the organizations we were serving, which wasn't a very good model actually for longevity, which I would learn. But I was in my 20s. I didn't know what I was doing.
It was pure.
Met my wife at 24. She was 28. She was walking down the street. I saw her. It was love at first sight for me. For her, it took a few years. But eventually, she would agree to go out with me, which took a while. And then we wound up having 2 kids in Atlanta. And so we then doing a bunch of stuff there, go work for a .com, even though I have this bar. Thought I was going to make my fortune. And what happens during the .com crash, I lose my job. And we had just moved to Jacksonville from Atlanta because my wife wanted to move to the beach. And I lose my job. So we have a new house, a new mortgage, a new home. I lose my job. How am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to support my family? At that point, I'm about 30 years old, 31. And I'm being really negative and miserable. And I'm treating my wife poorly in terms of I'm blaming her for why I have not lived up to my dreams, why I haven't lived up to my potential. And Rich, she had enough of my negativity. She said, if you don't change, we're over. We had a fight and she goes, if you don't change, we're over. She goes, I'm not spending my life with someone who makes me so miserable and is blaming me for why they haven't lived the life they want.
Jeez.
It was a great wake-up call. I wanted to stay married. And I asked her to stay. I said, just please stay. I'll work on it. She goes, you need to take medication. I said, no, I'm going to see if I can do it on my own. And I started researching ways I could be more positive. That's how I got into this, actually wanted to be better myself.
Jeez.
So I began researching all these techniques and strategies in positive psychology. This was the emerging field of positive psychology. 2001, it was just getting started. And I began practicing some of the ideas. One was, you can't be stressed and thankful at the same time. So I came up with the thank you walk, where every day I would walk and say what I was thankful for. And so it was a thank you walk, a walk of gratitude. And that walk of gratitude literally changed the course of my life. Every book I've ever written came on a thank you walk. The idea, the initiative, all of that was on those thank you walks. So my wife saw a difference within a week or two, within a month, a big difference. I noticed a difference. I started to feel better. And now I was taking on the stress and the fear and the anxiety that was debilitating me with gratitude. But I still had this angst. I still had this feeling that was like a pit in my stomach that really wouldn't go away. So I'm also seeking spiritually during that time as well. But at that point, I asked what I was born to do. Why am I here? So I did cry out to God. I said, God, why am I here? I know I'm here for a reason. What is my purpose? And writing and speaking came to me in that moment. So what was I going to write and speak about? Well, I wanted to be more positive. Let me talk about what I'm doing. So I began these weekly positive tips via an e-newsletter, again, back in 2001, 2002. Now everyone has an e-newsletter.
Yeah, but
back then, no one did.
You were first, man.
And I was sending it out every week. And it started with 5 people, my mother, my brother, my teammates from college. And by the way, my teammates from college cannot believe what I'm doing now. They're like, you were a mental wreck in college, which I was. I was a mental wreck. And they're like, this is what you're doing now? You help all these athletes and all these coaches and all these business leaders? Yeah, it's crazy because that's not who I was. I love that this is a show about who you're becoming.
Yeah.
Because man, who I was is so different from who I am now. And it was wanting to be better myself, then starting to share these tips with others. Next thing you know, people started to read it and share it, started to get out there. And that led to some speaking engagements. It led to me doing this work, which then led me to write The Energy Bus. In 2006, I wrote that book.
That was your first book.
Yeah.
And it went pretty good.
Not at first. It was rejected by 30 publishers.
Tell me this.
So I write the book. I want to be a writer. I want to be a speaker. I know this is what I want to do. The newsletter is going pretty well. And I get rejected by 30 publishers. And my agent said, give up. But I couldn't give up because I had my mission and vision. The vision, it was to encourage and inspire as many people as possible, one person at a time. So that was my mission. Okay, reach a lot of people, but one person at a time. And so that kept me going. And you know what? I gotta be honest. What also kept me going was I didn't want to be a failure.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to be somebody. I wanted to accomplish something. I knew I was here to make a difference in some capacity, in some way. So I was a little stubborn. I was gritty. I had been told I wasn't good enough before. So when I'm getting rejected by these publishers, I'm like, no, I think I have something that can make a difference. And the funny thing is my wife read The Energy Bus and she's like, yeah, it's okay. And my brother read it, he goes, yeah, that's pretty good. Like, never thought it would be this book that would take off like it did. But finally, John Wiley & Sons agreed to publish the book, a big publisher out of New York, New Jersey. They agreed to publish it. So they couldn't give me a lot of money. I said, I don't care. I just want to get this book out there. And they said, all right, well, we can get it out in 6 months. And so the book came out. No bookstores would carry it. But it was a huge hit in South Korea. A huge hit in South Korea. Like,
this is true?
A tremendous hit. I joke, I prayed for it to be a bestseller. It came out, it was a bestseller in Korea. You got to be specific with your prayers because it's like this huge hit in South Korea, but not one bookstore in the United States would carry the book. So,
any idea why that happened?
There was a big book fair, international book fair.
Okay.
And it was in Asia, Singapore.
Yep.
And
been there.
They showed the book at the fair, and there was a bidding war for it. These two publishing companies loved the idea of energy, buzz, positivity was really big in Korea. They really they're almost like the Texas of countries.
Yeah.
And they have like this energy and belief and faith, and they just love that kind of message, I guess. And they began bidding for it. It was the largest foreign rights deal John Wiley & Sons has ever done.
What are we talking about?
$250,000. I get half of that. So my book advance was like $20,000, nothing. But then I get half of the foreign rights deal. Out of the blue, they sent me the notice and they said, this is not a mistake. Those are real zeros. I couldn't believe it. Out of the blue. So now it's huge in South Korea.
Had the book already been out in America?
No.
Okay.
It just came out. But it was a huge
it's not in bookstores. It goes off in Korea. Okay.
Yeah. But no bookstores in the United States would carry it. I remember Barnes & Noble passed on it. My publisher calls me. He's like, hey, I'm trying to get it there. But they passed on it. And I knew that I had to go on a tour around the country. I didn't have an Airstream, but I had a yellow energy bus. You know?
We haven't sold any books, but we got an Airstream.
And I went from city to city on this yellow bus. Like it was a makeshift SUV that we wrapped yellow. And I went around the country. I flew out to I drove it out to LA, drove it to LA, and then drove all the way back, different cities.
Just doing any and everything.
Every city possible along the way. And we try to set up events, try to set up book signings at coffee shops. We actually did some things with radio stations and TV stations in town. And it was funny because we would reach out and say, hey, Jon Gordon's coming to town. He's internationally known. He's internationally known.
True
story. I was big in Korea. My publisher called me the David Hasselhoff of Korea.
Oh my gosh.
Which was hilarious because I was a huge hit. Some people have no idea who David Hasselhoff is.
I know he is.
But he was,
some people stand in the darkness. It's Baywatch theme song, sorry.
Yeah, he was big in Germany, but not in the US, right?
Wow.
So I'm going from city to city sharing the message in this book. And we had 5 people in one city, 10 people in another, 20 in another.
This is crazy.
Yeah, the most people ever, 100 people in Des Moines, Iowa. Guess who they thought was coming? Jeff Gordon. That's who they thought was coming. Yeah. Not Jon Gordon, Jeff Gordon.
Where's Jeff? His brother John wrote a book. Is this the NASCAR bus?
People would call me Jeff all the time. That's actually a true story. So I get home from that tour and it wasn't successful.
How long was that?
The tour?
Yeah.
It was over the summer.
Jeez, man.
So I got home and I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had the vision and mission. And I tell people all the time, you got to have a vision and mission of where you're going and why you're going there. Because we don't get burned out because of what we do. We get burned out because we forget why we do it. So I had my why, I had my vision, and I told my wife, she was so supportive. I got home, like she was like, go, do this. I was gone for over a month. Like she was like, go, do this. And I'll never forget like going from city to city. It was a great time. It was a lot of fun. It felt like road trip.
Yeah, adventure.
Like what you're doing now.
Yep.
Meeting people.
Yep.
Hanging with people, like spontaneous things just happening.
Yep.
I remember I got sick in Kansas. That was not fun. But But it was a great experience. And again, I get back, not sure what the future holds, but I'm like, I got to go out there and reach as many people as possible. And I'm just going to do this every day. I'm going to share this vision, share this message. And I get back, and that's when the Jacksonville Jaguars called when I got back around that time. And then all of a sudden, everything started to kickstart from there. But the cool thing is when I look back, people I met on that tour, a principal brought me to their school to speak.
Yep.
A business leader brought me to his business. And so one event was 6 people. One of those 6 people eventually became the CEO of Avon. And she brought me years later to 6,000 at Avon. So that small tour, that humble beginning
all the seeds
led to now all these people over the years. So I can actually trace almost everything I'm doing now back to that tour of just going from city to city. Again, not the most effective, not the most efficient, but we didn't have social media at the time.
Yeah, totally different day.
We didn't have any of that. But I also still think there's something about the grassroots of what you're doing now on this bus. Like you're taking this bus and you're going to places.
Yep.
There's nothing like it.
Nothing like it. I think it's really encouraging because, you know, I've written some books. None of my books have ever done an iota, anything compared to what one of your books has done. But it's also like, I think we forget like, oh, Jon Gordon didn't just write a book and it just exploded.
Right.
He went and worked what he believed, the message of sharing it and continuing to talk about it. Even the energy bus, because I never got to ask you this before. How did you have the idea to write like in a parable form? Because that's a different style of writing. Yeah. I'd never written in that way before, kind of creating a narrative or a story. Where did that reference for you come back then?
That book, by the way, took 5 years for it to be a bestseller. So 5 years.
See, I love hearing
after
this.
That moment, it took to be a bestseller. And then after that, then it started to really get out there. It sells more now than it did last year and more than the year before. And the book's now 18 years old, which is wild.
How many copies do you think that book?
Over 3.5 million copies now of that book. Of that, but it's my bestseller. That's like
your bestseller book.
That's
your
my
first book
bestseller.
Is your bestseller.
Yeah, which is weird. And I'm still asked to speak on that book. Just the other day, I gave a great talk to Unleash Brands, which is, you know, a great company, not a great talk, but a great company. Love them. And they wanted me to speak on the energy bus. And I thought, I am now 54 speaking about a book that I wrote when I was 35, 36 years old.
Tell me lessons from that. What do you think about that? Is that a weird feeling? That's
actually
interesting.
It's almost it's like almost like the artist who's asked to play his hit songs.
Yep.
You still love the song. The message is timeless.
Yep.
I love the message. It really serves as the foundation for every book I've written afterwards. And even this new one, The 7 Commitments of a Great Team, still goes back in essence to the energy bus. And the principles really are timeless and they do have an impact. And I do love that people read it and get encouraged by it and energized by it. But it's just funny that book, which I wrote in 3.5 weeks. So what happened was, you asked me, how did I come to write that book? So I got to admit, I wrote 2 other books before the energy bus.
Okay.
But they were how-to books. And I wasn't a Christian when I wrote those books.
Okay.
And I put my face on the cover.
Okay.
And they didn't do well. And I think my face had a big part of it. And so what happened was after I wrote the energy bus, and I wrote the book, I said, this is the book that I know that I want to share with the world. I don't want these other books to be like what I'm known for. I really want the energy bus to be what I'm known for, because I became a believer right before I wrote the energy bus.
Okay.
So for me, that was important. I was sharing like the essence of me and my faith in that book. And the beginning of the book says, this book is dedicated to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So, and it was I thanked the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit for the book. Actually, I dedicated it to my mom who passed away. Yeah. So my mom read the manuscript before she passed away, but did not see the book in stores. But she read the book, which is pretty cool. It's really cool. And so for me, that book was special. But I wrote these how-to books and they didn't do well. And I'm walking and praying and I'm thinking, I gotta write, a story. I gotta write a fable. Ken Blanchard, who was one of my mentors and heroes, wrote fables.
Yep.
And I liked the fable format. I thought, I'm gonna see if I can write a story, because people learn through stories. People like stories. How-to books, I'm not so sure about that. And so when I'm walking one day and I'm praying, I said, God, what book do you want me to write? What's a story I could tell? Literally, the energy bus came to me about a bus driver and a passenger, and the bus driver changes the passenger's life. And it's the energy bus. Because I met a real bus driver who impacted me, who was very encouraging, very happy, very positive. I was having a bad day. And I said, why are you so happy? And he said, because I love life. He said, I love you. I said, okay. He said, I love me. And he said, I love God. He said, it's all connected, and I love it all. And I'll never forget meeting him and him saying that. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool? So initially it was a male bus driver and the passenger. But as I'm writing it, the first day, I got the clear hit. Like God spoke to me. No, it's a woman. And her name is Joy. And she looks like Queen Latifah. And I just knew that I had like this image of who she was. She was the woman who I met in the black church, who they rate. Like when I came down to see you all at your first church, and you had the large Haitian community, and those women, they hug you, and they got the big smiles and the incredible spirit, and they're shining and they're sharing their love. And I had this image of Joy being that woman. And so that was the idea behind this book. And it was actually, she was modeled after a woman named Edith, who I met in the Atlanta airport, who worked there and would see her. So that's what gave me the idea to write this story. But back then, no one wrote fables where people were three-dimensional characters.
Yep.
It was usually like very two-dimensional.
Yep.
So with the energy bus, it was a guy who was miserable and negative. He was having problems at home. He was based on me and my own struggles with negativity. So that was really rare. And that's why publishers didn't like it at first, and why the bookstores wouldn't carry it. Because they're like, this is a business book, but it's also like personal.
Yep.
They didn't know what to make of it. Now things have moved towards that. So it was cool that it was sort of ahead of its time in that way. But once I went on that tour, bookstores started carrying it. That helped me get the books out there. And once they were in Barnes & Noble, people like you and your dad saw them there, and that helped a lot.
When you go and give like a talk on that place you just at to speak on the energy bus, that content that you're sharing, that's just evolved, or it's like, nah, man, this talk is pretty similar to the talk that I gave?
No, it's evolved. It's evolved. It's almost like the principles stay the same.
Yep.
But the stories change, and you know how it is as a communicator, the nuances.
Yep.
You can talk about, this is the challenge, this is the issue, this is what you think it is, but let me tell you what it really is. So you can actually go back and forth between what the myths are and what the truths are. And I think that helps a lot as a speaker. So the content has evolved a lot. The stories, the case studies, the examples, the humor is obviously always changing.
Yep.
But the same principles apply.
As a public communicator, speaker, I think at times you're not just this, but you'd fall into I think people would go, oh, we're going to get a great motivational speaker. I thought you would hate that term, but you might fall into that category where someone's like, Jon can do that. How important are these illustrations and stories for you? Like, how precious are those? Like, there's some stories that you go, I can share this story for the next 20 years. How do you know when you've come by one of those?
Yes.
How many of those do you keep? How do those come about? That's a little bit insider language, but I'm just very intrigued.
It's almost like as a pastor, though, you give a talk to the same congregation.
Yeah.
And that's hard because you can't tell the same stories. Right. But when you go to another place,
I can go use it. Yep.
You take some of those great stories.
Yeah.
Because you know it resonates with the audience. You enjoy telling it.
Yep. It's
a lot of fun. It brings home a great point. So I have new stories that have been evolving, and I love when a new story comes and you try it out and it lands, and you're like, oh, okay, this is one I can use here. This is a great one. I'm going to use this. And then you try to figure out when you're going to speak. The way I put my presentation together, I think about the core principles.
Okay.
What stories am I going to tell? And then how I'm going to apply it to that audience. So I go principle, story, application.
Okay.
So that's the formula: principle, story, application. And I'm putting together a puzzle for every single talk. So it's always different. I never give the canned talk.
Yeah.
It's always different, but I will tell some of the same stories. But sometimes I'll even tell the story at the end instead of the beginning and see how it works there. And sometimes I'll say, no, this story for this audience will go great right here, and I'll finish with this. And you always, as you know, want to have an impactful ending that brings home the point, which is something, again, I've been searching for great endings for a while, but I finally feel like, okay, I got the formula in terms of how to bring a great ending. Because as a speaker, your last point and your last part should be powerful, because that's what they're going to remember the most, how you finish. It's like they finish. That's why fireworks finish with a bang at the end.
Very good.
You want to finish really strong in that way. But Charlie Tremendous Jones said, I don't need new stories. I just need new audiences. And I love that he said that. Like if you're a motivational speaker, you can literally give the same talk to thousands of different audiences for the rest of your life. You don't have to really come up with a new talk or new stories if you don't want to. You really don't.
Yeah.
Like Damon West, who I wrote The Coffee Bean with.
Yep.
He gives that coffee bean message everywhere he goes.
And it's always good.
And it's always good, and people love it. And now I see him adding different nuances within his overall story. But that coffee bean story will last forever. I saw Ken Blanchard, 5 years ago, tell the same story he told 15 years ago. Still hits, still lands. Guess what? 80% of that audience, probably 90%, they haven't seen you before. So you might as well bring your best to that audience. My wife will get mad sometimes, like, don't you have to tell some different things? And I'll say, honey, this audience has never heard it before. So I got to share that with them so they can benefit from that same point and principle as well. But the cool thing is I'm also not stuck in that one story. I have a bunch of different talks and a lot of different content. So over the years of having to constantly do this, you develop the muscle, as you know, and the rep where, okay, I think pastors are the best communicators on the planet because every Sunday you got to give a new talk. So you got to come up with new material. You got to be good at it. It's got to be funny. And then you get to deliver it 3 or 4 times. So then the repetition really helps you develop and helps you go. You get that muscle built and then allows you to improvise as well. So your improvisation skills improves as well. I've, for years also, would wing a lot of talks, which again, at the time I'm like, should I prepare more? But I chose to wing it because I wanted it to be more spontaneous and not feel so Ken because I was giving so many talks. And what I realized was that actually made me a better speaker because I can get up there and talk about anything and craft a talk within, you give me a topic now, I can start giving a talk and take it in several different directions.
I can pull from my tool belt.
Off the cuff right now, at any time, at any moment. But I also, what I'm doing now more than ever, I'm preparing more than ever. So now I'm actually preparing more than ever because I want every talk to be great. I want it to matter. And I realized in the past, I was so tired at times, speaking so much, I almost was winging at times to be creative, but also because it was easier. Now I'm preparing more. And I have the improvisation and creative to just also go in different directions if I have to.
I think one of the things that I've never seen you give a bad talk, for the record.
I appreciate
and I've seen you in lots of different spaces. I think you're really, really great at transitioning. You know what I'm saying? Like you can run maybe a 3-point outline or your 3 big buckets, whether that's, serve, love, care. But just how you said it, you can use the story as an introduction or as a close. Sometimes I get a little bit too chronological in terms of whatever I've brought there. And with a Bible narrative, sometimes, right, you kind of feel like, I don't want to use the word stuck. Some preacher's going to get mad at me. Just preach the word. But I can be a little bit too linear. And I think one of the things I watch and learn from you is like, man, your ability to be fluid, to say, oh, this works in the middle, or this works with this other principle. You just said it in a really good way. I've got principle, story, application. So I can apply with a different principle and I can use a story that usually goes with that principle for another principle. I think that's really masterful and beautiful.
If you go to talk about belief, for instance, I remember getting a call from the Commanders last year before their playoff run against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they reached out and said, hey, will you come up and speak to the team? I was actually even thinking about at that point, should I still speak to teams like this? I speak to coaches, but these guys are young. Should I still speak to teams, these young guys? And I went up there and man, it was such a special time. I'm like, all right, God, you still want me to speak to teams. But I knew the message was belief, brotherhood, be you. So and I love 3s. For some reason, I find 3s are the best.
I like 3 a lot too.
Belief, brotherhood, and be you. So let's talk about belief. So when I'm thinking about belief, what stories am I going to tell under belief in that moment? Because I got 15 minutes. There's a timer. And if you're not off the stage in 15 minutes, they're pulling you off. That's the NFL game plan.
I can't do a 15-minute talk.
15 minutes.
I shouldn't say I can't. I need to learn.
15 minutes. And I'm like, okay, I got to start quick. Can't spend a lot of time. You get up there a lot of times as a pastor, like, hey, how's everyone doing today?
We warm up. I warm up. Hey, my wife.
Couple
you got a Bible? Raise it. Okay, enough, man.
So you have to start right away. I'm like, all right, guys, hey, it's great to be here, blah, blah, blah. And then went into it. All right, I want to talk to you about 3 things today that are essential. One is belief. And then I gave him research on belief and then went into a story when I lost 100% of my business during COVID. So again, that was a story that I'm going to try in that moment and see how it goes with these guys. And they resonated so well with it. It was cool to see. I'm like, all right, I'm going to use that another time in my business talk and see how that goes. But that principle and that story just went well together. But I could tell about 5 different stories under belief. Then brotherhood was all about connection. And you got to create a connection, and that relationship you have will create a greater commitment. So if you want to be a committed team, you got to be a connected team. So guys, you are connected. I can tell you guys got a strong brotherhood, but guess what? In the playoffs, you got to be even more connected, even more committed. Going back to belief, new levels, new devils. Guys, you got a lot of belief, but your belief must rise higher right now.
Very good.
As you go to the next level. You're in the next level right now. It's got to rise higher. And then it was the brotherhood. And then BU was, you don't have to do more than you're already doing. Like we often think in those games, playoff games, postseason, all right, I got to do something, different. No, just be you. Be you. You are powerful. You're here for a reason because you are powerful. So it was like confirming that the power is inside of them, not outside of them. So create from the inside out. And I told a story with that. So it was like 3 quick stories, 3 principles in that amount of time. But in my preparation, I'm going, all right, what story fits here? What story fits here? What story fits here? And then how am I going to close it to make it strong? And that's how you prepare a talk.
You need to help me write some sermons, Jon.
I think you give some great sermons, brother. Yeah, I envy pastors because, again, you're able to come with something every single week. You're able to tie it to the Bible. So you're tying it to truth. But then I've watched you a lot. You're incorporating your personal life with that teaching for that week, then also have to make it very relevant to the audience. And I think that's what we also have to say. It's always got to be relevant to the audience. What does it matter to them? How does it apply to them? What's the payoff? What's the takeaway for them? And I think that's essential when we're speaking to audiences. Whatever presentation you're giving, it's not about you. It's about the audience. How can you move them? What do you want them to do after this? How do you want them to think going forward?
Very good.
So I think it's always remembering how we're here to impact them. And that's why the application piece is going to be different. I'm sure if you gave that sermon talk to an NFL player versus an entrepreneur, it'd be 2 different things on how they can apply it. Or a mom at home. How can you apply teamwork at home, mom? Because you got to get your kids working together. But the same principles always apply.
Always.
But the application for them is going to be different.
I'm always thinking, what do I want them to know?
Okay.
What do I want them to do?
That's good.
And on a week-to-week basis, one of my little things that's just, no one ever told me this, but it just matters to me. I'm always trying to bring something that happened that week in my life into the message because I want them subconsciously, directly, indirectly to go, wow, whatever we're talking about today, it applies into real life. And so if that's a story, a couple weeks ago, I took my daughter on a daddy, daughter date. Somehow that's coming into my message that week. I have no idea what I'm preaching on, but I want that to come alive. Like, oh, this thing is a living, breathing thing. Faith is not just a part of my life. It's in my life.
That's
and
so
this ancient text that we're looking at, somehow there's space in this 42-minute presentation to say, hey, and yesterday or in 2 days ago, I was talking to Jon, like that's a big, important thing to me because I really want people to get that this is relevant to your life, what you're saying.
That.
And so it's been helpful.
Is 42 minutes your key, or like what's the best amount of time for you?
I don't love below 40 minutes really. Like if I'm going to go do a church conference when they're like, hey, 25 minutes, I'm like, bro, what am I doing here? Which is silly because it's not about what God can do or not do. It's about what I can do. I think when I have like a 45-minute timer, I feel the most like comfortable.
Rhythm,
I have learned in some of those settings, like some of those business settings, I don't need that much time because I think in church setting, there's a lot of language and flow. And there's also like, they already know me.
Right.
But if I go speak at something that you're doing, I probably should do it in 30 minutes. That's what I've kind of learned in the corporate space. It's like, oh, this is a little bit more get to it. Don't, hey, how we doing? Church life, I think there's a little bit of breathing room to get into a text and they know you. But yeah, I think at home, I'm probably at that 44-minute is kind of what I like. But there's ministry time on the back end that you don't usually put on the podcast. And so you're up there. And I think the later service is 8:45 is usually what goes online for us. And so that's the early service. It's pretty like the shortest, but you come to 6 p.m. church, we're praying for people at the altar and giving words of knowledge and prophesying over people and laying hands. Cause there's a ministry side of it, right? I think you're opening up the heart and God's word is food for our soul. And so it's healing. And there's something about people being open that now you can go, cool. Now I've preached the word. Now let's minister for a moment. Let's pray for each other.
That's awesome.
I really enjoy that part of it.
See, that's why one of the best communicators
Whatever.
in the world.
Now
Because
he's
he said know and do. How easy is that?
No.
Know and do. I'm like making it all complicated. Know and do. I love that.
Now we're breaking the fourth wall.
Know and
is that what
do.
it's called, the fourth wall?
Know and do. I mean, it's just so simple though. Know and do. And I love the ministry part of it, by the way. Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, for sure.
I've been really committed lately because, my mission is positive leadership, developing positive leaders. But I have found that being a praying leader makes you a more positive leader. So if you're praying, you're going to be more positive. Praying and connecting to God is the key that we all need more than ever. So I feel a calling and a mission to try to get men and women, but particularly men in a lot of ways, to just start praying more.
Beautiful.
Because we're not praying enough. And I ask people all the time, do you need to pray more? And everyone always says, yeah. We don't pray enough because we don't realize actually what it does and the power of it.
Yeah.
And prayer is communing and connecting with God. So when you're praying to God, you're communing and connecting with him, and you were created for that connection. And prayer is how you connect. And we don't think of it that way. But if you look at a world that's divided and disconnected, and you look at people who are dealing with anxiety, the root for the Greek word of anxious means to separate and divide. And all mental health disorders report feelings of isolation, disconnection, and separation. So bipolar, two poles, separation. Schizophrenia means split mind, separation.
Very good.
When people experience trauma when they're young, there's a neurological separation that happens in their brain. So the division and the separation within the soul actually manifests itself in a neurological separation in the brain. So if you look at this, you can realize, oh, there's an enemy or a force, both trying to divide and separate and disconnect. And God is always trying to unite us back to himself. And Jesus said, I am the vine, you are the branch. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Well, you're not supposed to be apart from him. You're supposed to be connected and one with him. And yet we live in a world where we feel disconnected, isolated, and separate. So the way we bring ourselves back to God is to pray by surrendering and trusting and praying. The more we pray to God and commune with him, he actually begins to heal us. And so through prayer, Corinthians 6:17, he who is joined to the Lord is one spirit with him in Christ. So as you become one spirit with God, you are spirit, I'm spirit, God is spirit. As we pray, we become one spirit with him.
Beautiful.
When couples pray with God, to God, say before bed, they are each spirit, God is spirit, and now they become one spirit together with him. And that's why healing takes place. That's why couples who pray together, 99% stay together. Research is clear on this. Couples who pray together, 99% of them stay together. Those who go to church, 50% stay together. And I'm not saying you should go to church, for sure. But you need to go to church and you need to pray before, after church. So it's really the power of prayer, and every prayer changes you. Every time you pray, you will be a different person. Because if you're communing with the eternal God, right, he's going to eternally change you and change your soul and your nature. So every time you spend time with him and commune with him in his spirit starts to become, his spirit becomes your spirit, right? His healing becomes your healing. His power becomes your power. And his genius becomes your next great idea. And so the more time you spend with him, that's how you heal. So I say this because we talked about how I was so miserable and negative. Those walks of gratitude turned into walks of prayer.
Yep.
So I've been praying almost every day for the past 18 years on those walks of gratitude and prayer. That's what changed my mind.
Yep.
That's what changed my soul. That's actually what healed me and continues to heal me. So if we pray more, we'll heal more.
Second we convince ourselves we're too tired for church is the second we think that church is about us. We don't go to church to give. We go to church to give to God. We go to church to worship God. We go to church to learn more about the Father, because when we learn about the Father, we give more glory to him. We're not going to church just to gain. We're going to give something to Christ. Hey there, it's Bryce Crawford. I'm so excited to be in Miami, Florida this summer for VOUSCon 2025. I want you guys to join me for 3 incredible transforming days of worship, arena sessions, workshops, and more. If you are looking to expand your community, personalize your faith, and invest in your future, this moment, I believe, is for you. Get your tickets today at VOUSCon.com. You don't want to miss that. It's going to be such a special time, and I'll see you guys there.
He is the I am, and you are the amen. It is your agreement that brings the anointing. It is your obedience that brings the breakthrough.
junk all they want. We're going to be serious about the Lord's business. Signs, wonders, miracles, healing. The city is going to shift in the name of Jesus.
Well, and I like your book, The No Complaining Rule. It's like if you would pray as much as you complain,
That's good.
something would actually change here.
That's good.
And I think a lot of times we spend our time complaining to one another, but God's not afraid of your complaints.
Oh, that's good.
Just turn them upward. And when you complain to people, you get pity. When you complain to God, you get his power.
Wow, that's
and
good.
so you bring it to God. And I think what you're speaking about is so important. And I think this gets left out because you're using some really, really pivotal words. The Greek word for two is die. And a house divided cannot stand. So what is division? Two visions. And so many people live their life scattered, spread out because they've got multiple vision and they don't actually seek the kingdom, seek Jesus first, put him in his proper place.
Amen.
And I think what you're talking about is important because we are mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
And so many people are disintegrated. And I think what's happening, we talk about that three-dimensional character from the energy bus. It's like, wait, it's not my work life, my home life, my faith life. You keep compartmentalizing like that.
Yeah.
You don't realize it, but you're consciously or subconsciously creating a divided soul. You have to bring all of that into, an integrated model.
Yeah.
And I think it all begins with prayer. Paul says, I long that you would know him, know the vastness of his love, the depths, the width of his love. That's what he prays in Ephesians 4. His prayer for the church in Ephesus was they would know God. Remember, Jesus says, depart from me, I never knew you. People know about God. They don't know God.
Yes.
And you don't know God from listening to you and I talk. You know God when you talk to him.
Amen.
How much commentary is out there? But it's just, even churches, a lot of it is I'm in the church. I love the church. I think we should be together in church.
Yes.
But if that doesn't actually motivate someone to walk out of the four walls and get to know God,
Amen.
that's where the power is. And you're speaking about it because when you start about stress and anxiety, it's my soul being strangled. It's my worry. It's my fear. One of my favorite little case studies is you've got Peter and Judas. You ever think about the fact that Peter and Judas committed the same exact sin? Judas betrayed Jesus. He got paid for it. Peter betrayed Jesus. He didn't get paid, but he was afraid.
Right.
He betrays him to a little girl. Yet the result is so different. One man kills himself.
Right.
The other man becomes the leader of the church.
Right.
Same sin,
Wow.
different responses. I think Judas immediately knew what was wrong. Remember Judas's last words that Jesus ever hear him say in the garden?
Yeah.
Friend, do what you came to do.
Wow.
The last words, that the picture of sin, Judas, the Benedict Arnold of the Bible, he heard, the last words he heard from Jesus was Jesus called him friend.
Yeah.
In his lowest moment.
Wow.
I think Judas chose isolation. Peter in his sin at least went back to the fishing boats. It was in community.
Yep.
And I think the principle is that isolation intensifies your pain. Community can cure your pain.
Amen.
And so church is us coming together, that we would spur each other on to what? To do good works? What? To be moral? Those things are byproducts. We spur each other on to know God, to pray, to get to know him. And I can't agree with you more.
Yeah, I love that.
I think what I want to maybe ask you a little bit about is that you're in a world that the last, whatever it has been, 10, 20 years now, you've been overt about your faith.
Yeah.
But positivity,
Right.
it might create a better quality of life, but it's not going to heal your eternal soul.
No.
And there's a lot of people out there that preach faith in faith or faith to get, faith, just believe in yourself and then you'll, get this. And ultimately it's still just moving the goalpost.
Yeah.
For you, a radical transformation took place when you became a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
And you're not shy about telling people about that. I think that more and more I hear you're bolder and bolder. Now you're talking about I'm just trying to get people to pray. I'm like, John, but talk about that conversion moment and how that even happened. Cause I think it's always interesting when I meet a man who met Jesus in their 30s. He didn't grow up, as a sold out on fire. 80% of something like believers meet Jesus before the age of 18. So you're already an outlier of how you kind of came into the faith.
I think when you're in pain and you're suffering, you're seeking for the solution. And I was looking for that solution and I was trying everything and nothing was working. Meditation wasn't working. I couldn't get rid of this pain that I had in my soul. And I think that pain exists for a reason because God is showing you're seeking something that can only be found in him. And even as a leader now, we talked about, getting to know God. I didn't really know God. I prayed to God, but I didn't get to know God. And I always try to encourage people to pray, because if you're a leader, I don't want you to come to me for all the answers. I want you to go to the one who has the answers. And so if you go to God, you start to find your answers that you're looking for, that you need, rather than me telling you what to do. So a great leader, a great dad, which your dad is always going to try to help you have your own relationship with God, so that you'll actually be self-sufficient. He's teaching you how to fish. He's teaching you to go to the one who actually created you. I heard this the other day. This guy, Billy Frick, said, God doesn't have grandkids.
True.
God doesn't have grandkids. Sometimes as a parent, and you have your kids, right? And they're young, but now my kids are 25 and 26. And I think about that often. God, they're yours. They're not mine. Like, I'm not the middle person between them. Like, they are a child of yours. You have to lead them. For my conversion, it was just seeking, and a friend of mine gave me some sermons on a CD, and I listened to one of them, which was from Rob Bell, Covered in Dust, about Jesus as a Jewish rabbi. And the fact that I was
Velvet Elvis, man.
the fact that I was Jewish,
Changed my life.
the fact that I was Jewish, the fact that my mom was Jewish, I should say, and had that background, it really spoke to me, because I saw this Jesus as a Jewish rabbi. Why would his disciples follow him? And then another sermon around that same time was from Erwin McManus, who you know well. And that sermon was Why I Follow Jesus. And it really spoke to me. I'll never forget listening to that. And it really spoke to me at that time. And I remember saying, I'm going to give this Jesus, a shot. God, if he was who he said he was, show me the signs. And God literally started showing me the signs everywhere. I'm driving down the road, going to Orlando from Jacksonville. I'm looking to the left, and I hear, look, and I turn to the right, and there's a sign that says, Jesus is the answer. A literal sign. And that started happening all the time. I'm meditating, because I would do these Buddhist meditations, and I started seeing a glowing cross. A glowing cross. And that really just woke me up, like, whoa, glowing cross, what's going on here? And so I was having these encounters with Christ that really started to bring me closer to him. And it's a whole long story, but I went to see a Buddhist energy healer. And I was having these stomach issues, and I'm visiting him. I said, hey, I'm seeing all these signs that say Jesus is the answer. What do you make of it? He goes, well, I'm a Buddhist. I want to see if I can attain enlightenment on my own. He goes, with Christianity, it's like spiritual cheating. All you do is believe and receive. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, Jesus takes our soul pain. Christians call it sin. If you have a perfect, harmonious, energetic God, and you have heavy vibrational energy, you can't connect to this perfect, energetic God. Jesus takes your soul pain, your heavy vibrational energy, so you can connect to God.
This guy's preaching the
Yes,
gospel.
I know.
Man.
And I said,
Jeez.
it's crazy. And then I said to him, but he's a Buddhist trying to attain enlightenment, which is weird. And I said, can I take someone else's soul pain? He goes, can you handle your own? And I walked out of there going, I'm going to give this Jesus a shot, like really give him a shot, even more so now that he said that. Not the way most people find Jesus, through a Buddhist energy healer, but that's what happened to me. And I said, God, I don't have all the answers. Sometimes things don't make sense to me. The virgin birth always seemed strange to me, but strengthen my faith. Rich, I kid you not. Different friends started sending me books like Calvary Road, The Case for Christ. Max Lucado's books really spoke to me. The love and the way he wrote just really appealed to me.
You know you're a good writer when you can write the book called Grace.
Yes.
Hey, Max, what's your new book? Grace.
Yeah.
Oh, like what's it called?
Grace.
Oh, okay.
So good. He's so
Like,
good.
I mean, that guy is.
Yeah. I love Traveling Light. That was my favorite. And about Psalm 23. And that really spoke
graced,
to me.
man.
Traveling Light. And then I read Humility by Andrew Murray, which was written like in the 1800s. And that was a powerful book. So all these books just started speaking to me, and my faith just started to grow more and more from there. And I know my purpose is not necessarily like positivity. Like, it's a core part of me, but I know it's when you are seeking positivity, it will lead you to your source. And what is your source? A loving God. He is the source of positivity. Beautiful. And so seeking positivity leads you to the loving source of positivity, who wants you to actually create a more positive world.
That story about that Buddhist monk, or I'm not sure what the
energy
terminology
healer.
is. Yeah,
He's an
energy healer. It's like beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. It's beautiful that this guy actually is sharing the gospel and what grace is. Heartbreaking and going, can you carry your own?
Yes.
And it's like, No, I can't.
No.
But isn't that what the gospel says? It's like you can try to live under the law and the weight of it, but the whole point is to drive you to your knees and say, I need help. And it's like, as soon as you say that, you're like, now you got it.
Yep.
This is where your strength comes from. It's not in what you can do. It's what he does. He doesn't encourage us in us. He's not like, hey, John, you're great. He encourages us in him.
Yes. Amen.
And that's the gospel. And that story, that narrative over and over again is what I base my entire life on. And it's Christ in me, the hope of glory. And I just think that I don't think I knew that story like that. That's really, really beautiful and how that transpired. Do you think there was like a moment? It almost sounds like it was in stages. It doesn't seem like it was like or was there a one moment, or it was like it just kept building. Finally, you're like, I'm a Christian?
Right.
Do you remember like first time telling me you're a Christian, or it was like?
Yeah, I would always say I was a follower of Jesus.
Okay. I like that.
I was a follower of Jesus because what kept me away initially was all the
Christians.
All the hypocritical Christians.
That's what Gandhi said, right? I would be one, but I've met him. It's like, we get it.
And when I talked to Erwin that one time, he said, don't let Christians keep you from Christ, which was a really great message for me to hear.
Yep.
And then now I look back and I realize, yeah, I'm flawed as well. We're all flawed. No one is perfect. So if you're looking to us to be perfect, but I do want to strive to be more like Jesus. And I don't want to keep people away from Jesus. I want to do everything I can to hopefully be someone that will make people want to be a Christian.
I used to preach that story of Zacchaeus, Luke 19. And Zacchaeus, he couldn't see Jesus because of the crowd.
That's good.
And so he had to climb up on that sycamore
good.
tree. Sometimes you just got to get above the crowd.
Oh,
you got to get above
good.
the people around
That's
him.
good.
Because we get in the way. I get in the way. Like, I don't want to be a stumbling block. God, help me to get out of the way so people can see Jesus.
We were going to buy this painting.
Yeah.
We loved the painting. We met the artist and we didn't want to buy the painting anymore because the artist was someone that you would not want their painting. And it ruined the painting. And I think about that all the time. I don't want to get in the way of people reading my books. I don't want to be the author that gets people to not read them. And I don't want to get in the way of people finding Jesus and get in the way of that. And I'm flawed. I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. There are times I probably, an interaction here or there where I might keep people from Jesus. And that's where I'm always striving to get better. If I mess up, man, I always want to improve because I want to do everything I can to lead people towards Jesus.
Well, John, when we met, it would have been 15 years ago. I was probably cutting my teeth first 3 years in full-time ministry, working for my dad, starting a young adult ministry called The Rendezvous. It kind of went from 12 people to 1,200 people. And now today, we are coming up on our 10th year as a church. We're in 4 different locations, working on a 5th right now, 65 people on staff. And
how many come to see you on Sundays?
Oh man, there's right around 8,000 on the weekends right now.
Not that it's about the numbers, but it just shows. It shows.
You're probably the first person to get me to say that on a microphone somewhere. But I mean,
growth.
It's growing. And I guess my point where I'm kind of leading in with that is that I think some challenges get easier. I think that you grow, right? I don't think the things I was crying about 2 years ago, I'm crying about anymore. Hopefully the things I'm worried about today or dealing with worry, you know what I'm saying, are not the same things. But in many ways, it doesn't get easier. It gets harder. Like what God's called us to is not hard. It's impossible. And I'm leading in this today. We've got a staff, I think, of about 65 people now, but lots of people that look to us and we're trying to lead and we're trying to grow in. And you have a brand new book out called 7 Commitments of a Great Team. And so I am all ears for a moment here because I need to grow my team. I need to grow in that area. What are some things that you would say to a guy like me in terms of what are some of these principles?
I love talking about this book because the 7 commitments of a great team are the 7 commitments that every team must implement, must ingrain, must actually do if they want to be great. Because a team can be just a team, but when they become committed, there's a different energy.
Yeah.
There's a different focus. There's a different buy-in. Like you're willing to fight for each other instead of against each other. You are fighting to be one instead of being separate and divided. And so these are the commitments that a team must make. And so when you're leading a team, which you are a phenomenal leader, and I love the way you lead. So you get all of this intuitively, but I do think as leaders, we struggle with teams who have different visions, different missions. They're not on the same page. They're not on the same bus. They don't stay positive together through challenging times. They don't strive to be their best. They're not always focused on getting better. There's a culture of discontentment or contentment. There might be a culture of complacency or maybe arrogance because they've had success. John Madden said, winning is a great deodorant. It covers up what stinks about your team. When you're having success, is everyone looking at how we can get better?
Good, very good.
How can we improve? How can we grow? This is essential to be a great team. We can't stay in the status quo. We got to get better and constantly improve. You got to ask 3 questions as a team. What do we do well? What do we need to do better? What did we learn that will make us better?
Very good.
And if you ask those questions on a daily basis, you will continue to grow, continue to improve. But then as a team, you got to make time to connect. You have to connect as a team. So there's got to be a commitment to do that. How do we do that? I'm really big on intentional team building. Essential for a team to get together and talk about different ideas, different exercises that make that team stronger. My favorite is the 5 H's. Who's your hero? What's a hardship you faced that made you who you are today? What's a highlight that you are proud of? What's hilarious? Have it be fun. And then the last H is, what do you hope for? As each person goes around and shares this as part of this team building, you're going to get to know each other so much better. I did this with Eric Spoelstra in the Miami Heat a few years ago. They learned about things that they had no idea about, and they worked together for like 15 years, and they didn't know these things. So it really does bond you closer together, an exercise like that. There's the 1-word exercise where everyone picks a word for the year, and then you talk about the words and why you chose them. That's another team building exercise. But this is a fable where it's a team that is going through these commitments in the course of a year, and you watch this team actually learn and grow and unite together as a result of that. And I didn't even add the commitment to each other. Like, it's not just about like the vision and mission, but am I committed to you? Are you committed to me? Is it about me or is it about we? And for that to happen, as you know, there always has to be service and sacrifice. Like you have to be willing to give and also give up. So as part of this, the question is, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to give to be a great team member and to build a great team? Because everyone is going to have to give up something. To be a great husband, you have to give up something.
Yep.
Might be, I can't go play golf right now. I can't go hang out with my buddies tonight. I got to be a great husband. There's things you have to give up. Your wife has to give up, right? Don Sheree has to give up things at times. So great relationships, great teams has to include sacrifice. It's always going to cost you something to be a great team and to be a great team member.
You just said something I think that's really insightful, and someone's listening. I think there's a lot of, younger pastors that listens to Mature Me. And an exercise I used to do when people used to come on staff, I used to always, like the last, I think there's like 4 or 5 stages people have to go through. We take ourselves really serious. But it's actually been really, really well because I want to make it hard to get onto team.
Yes.
And hard to get off team in the sense of there's not a big fire culture at VOU. I think we're slow to hire people, so we don't have to let a lot of people go. It's been smart people, but this is something I probably never shared publicly, but I think it's good. And maybe it could get taken out of context, but I think for the sake of what you were just teaching on, especially when you're starting something, but a church, you got to believe in God, of course. But if you don't believe in me, and I would take it a step further, I used to sit with a staff member and just say, hey, here's the deal. This is going to sound a little bit weird, and it could almost even sound a little bit self-indulging, but I think it's actually on purpose. If you don't love me and Don Sheree, this will not work.
Yep, it's true.
And so part of the encouragement, and I'm talking about today, is that like, you got to like love us. Because if you have an open heart and you trust us and believe in us, we can do anything. But as soon as there's some kind of inner dialogue going on of criticism, discontentment, lack of trust, we're not going to get anything done. You can't be on a team and not love your pastor.
Yeah.
And I used to always say it this way. It's like, I've got like, and I actually mean this, I think that God's given me gifts, but I don't think I'm the most gifted. I don't think I'm the smartest. I think God's given me a couple of gifts that I've just tried to work really hard. I go, but the reason why I'm hiring you is not to expose all my weakness.
Right.
You're actually here because you're strong in an area that I'm very, very weak. And this is a dance that we're doing together. And if you want to go the journey here, you got to learn to celebrate the strengths that I have, the 1 or 2 gifts. Go, let's make a big deal out of Rich's gifts. But he got me here because he's not good at this thing over here.
Right.
But I think sometimes on a team, it's like, we just spend all day telling the leader or telling the people on your team for that matter, all the areas that they're weak. I try to do the same thing with our team. It's like, I don't want to just spend all day going, you're bad. I try to keep staffing around their weaknesses and go, let's really try to encourage and make much out of the strength that you have. I think this challenge that I find myself in today, after being with the team for 10 years, is that you've got really, really great people, but sometimes it falls into these 2 categories. And I would say it's capacity can you expand? Or it's this word competency, which is, they kind of fall in the same, but I think they're different. I think capacity is being able to take on more. Competency is this thing has outgrown you in this niche and you don't actually have the wherewithal. My friend, Stephen Furtick, gave me a line that I've been using a lot recently. And it's just helped me because I think on the journey of building with team and people and going on the journey, I think if you're going to build a church, it's a different type of organization. I'm not into it just going, get the job done or you're out of here. I don't think that works well. You're building a community. But it's this phrase, they care, but they can't.
That's good.
And it's just helped me in terms of how I shift weight, as opposed to say, oh, you don't care about this. It's more like maybe your capacity or your competency in this area has reached its limit. What's my role here? My role here is to help you find another seat on the bus, to figure out maybe a better seat, or to expand and get people around you. I think the last thing, of course, is maybe you can't be on this team. But if you're showing me that you care and that you love and you want to stay connected, I want to keep trying to figure out a way for you to be on this journey if you feel called to it.
If you would talk to a business has to hire the right people for the right position, and they have to be competent, because if you're not competent, then you're not going to have trust. So I can trust you as a person, but would I trust you to actually do root canal on my teeth? No, I know you're great, Rich, but I don't trust you for that.
Totally.
I could trust you to give me a great sermon, a great message, but not that. So
you can touch my spiritual heart, but you're not touching my physical heart.
So I trust you and I love you and I care about you, but you're not
good language,
the right person for this role in this position, because you don't have the skills and the abilities for this. But if they have the potential, then you can hire, train, develop, and grow. But you have to look at that. I'm always doing that with my team as well. And we always have to do that. But you're right. Some people just aren't right for that position or that role. And I think we do people a disservice when we're trying to actually put them into a role they're not good at. I always want to look at, what is your strength? What are you good at? And how can we actually utilize you in that role?
Very good.
And I think that's the job of a leader, is to find the right positions and put the right people in those positions. But I think in churches too often, if someone cares and they want to do it, we give them the job, but they're not the best person.
You're nailing it now.
For it.
Now you're speaking my language.
Right. They're not the best person for it. And then I think it's coaching and leadership. So if you see the potential, what could that person become? And as we're growing as a company ourselves with training and consulting and certifications we're doing now, I've seen that in my own leadership. Like, okay, I've got to make sure I have a team around me who is really good. Otherwise, I'm going to be frustrated. And if I'm frustrated, I'm not going to be a good leader. Pat Riley says you don't have to yell at someone who wants the same things as you do. And so if they want the same things and they're good at it, and you have a good team and they're performing well, it makes you a whole lot better. How was Popovich as a coach after Ginobili was gone and Duncan was gone and David Robinson was gone and Tony Parker was gone, right? He's still a good coach, but was he winning championships? No, you need great players. You need talent. But I do believe leadership and culture drive that talent towards greatness.
So good.
And going back to what you said about leadership, I can't help but think, for you, Rich, it's easy for you to say that in terms of, if you don't love us, because you are a very loving, giving, caring person. So you're coming from that art. The problem today is we have leaders who are not loving and caring. And they're saying to their teams, you got to love us, even though I may treat you this way. And I'm this bad of a leader. I mean, I'm a narcissist, but you got to love me.
Very good.
And I know there's many people out there going, well, I don't love my boss because my boss doesn't love me. So the job of a leader, and I say this in this book, even though this is the 7 commandments of a great team, you must go first.
Absolutely.
You must be the most committed person in the organization. You must lead the way. You must be willing to serve and sacrifice for your team. And if they know you're willing to do that, and they know you care about them, they will trust you. But they got to know that you actually will do that.
They're going to reflect what you project.
Yes.
And so you can't expect someone to love you if you're not even going to first go, absolutely.
And we know you love them, so it's easy for you to say, but I'm thinking about the leader that doesn't share that love with their team, but they want love back. It's like, no, as the leader, you love others. Too many team members are going, well, so-and-so is not committed. So-and-so is not committed. They're not committed. They're looking around at everyone else saying they're not committed. And I tell them, no, you be the committed one.
Very good.
Commit to the person in front of you.
Yep.
Commit to the moment, every moment.
Very good.
And commit to your team. And if you're doing that on a daily basis, guess what? People are going to look to you for leadership, and you're going to impact others with your commitment. Don't let their lack of care affect your ability to care.
You could have been a rapper, John. You speak in bars, man, and I like it. That Pat Riley bar, Chris Riley is a big part of our church in Miami, and so we love her to death. And that's a bar from Pat Riley. You don't have to yell at people that want the same thing that you want. Like, if I'm yelling all the time, maybe it's because you got some of the wrong people on the team. The other bar that you said at the beginning when you were talking that I'm going to preach, which is what your stepfather, your dad said to you, you know, if you'll call me dad, I'll treat you like a son.
Yeah.
And isn't that just like our Heavenly Father?
Amen.
J.I. Packard said the Christian name for God is Father. And I think a big part of Christianity is learning how to be a son, that if I'll come to him like a dad, he will only ever always treat me like a son. And I've got a great dad. You know my dad.
The best. I love him.
The reason why we know each other is because of my dad.
I love him. Yeah, I talked to him the other day, and he just is so wise, just a brilliant guy. And I read his devotionals every day, by the way.
He's such a good man.
You get those devotionals that he sends out?
Of course, man. He's always doing it. My dad doesn't stop, man. My dad.
So I read him every.
My dad's 72 strong, man. Just overcame cancer, and here he is, just still going. He's a wild man, though. He adores you.
I love him.
He adores you. We call this the Mature Me podcast. And so for Jon Gordon, what's an area that you have to mature in right now?
You know, we're talking about leadership. And I said this the other day. I'm not the best leader.
Me neither.
I want to be a better leader. So I'm always growing. I'm the best at helping leaders build stronger teams. So I can help you be a great leader. I'm a great coach to a leader to help you build a stronger team. But now that I have this bigger team that I have and we are growing, I want to mature in my leadership. I see the vision. I know what we need to do. And I've been a driver in my past. People are surprised because I'm known as Mr. Positive, but I've been a driver. My daughter has felt my driving when she was younger. She feels much more of my love now.
Yeah.
But I want to practice love and accountability, what I teach, in a greater way. So love and accountability, grace and truth as Jesus led. And so I want to love you, but I want to hold you accountable to the standards, but I want to do it in a very positive way. I don't want to get frustrated. I don't want to be demeaning, which I'm not really demeaning. I want to be demanding. It's okay to be demanding.
What gets you frustrated?
Just don't be demanding. When people aren't doing what they're supposed to do, when people have their assignments and they don't get it done, when people give me more on my plate instead of taking things off my plate when they can do it. And guess what that goes to? I got to be a better leader and set expectations better. And most of it, what I realize is it's actually upfront. I got to do a better job of planning upfront, preparing upfront, and creating the systems and the processes that will make things better. So I hired a president recently, to help me with my company and do that. But my team the other day said to me, which was good, they said, we can tell you're working on it. We can tell you're really improving. You've gotten so much better. I'm like, well, yeah.
Did you take that as a compliment?
Yeah, I said, yeah, big time. Because I said, I write about positive leadership, but I gotta live it. I gotta live it all the time. And I would say most of the time I am positive, but it's all these meetings and plannings. And, you know, I love to write and speak. That's what I'm here for. You know, leading a team was not like my plan in doing this. I love to write and speak. That's my calling. That's my main thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you're driving down the car and you look in the back seat and you see these kids back there. And they're your kids. You're like, where did they come from? And you're now a parent. No one taught you how to be a leader and how to lead those kids. But you now have to learn how to lead your family.
Yep.
And I had to work on that. And I did. And I worked a lot on being a better dad and a better father. And now it's about being the best leader I could be for my team and being the leader that I write about. It's not like I'm like walking into the office going like, what the hell's going on here? But I do want to share this because I'm actually going to use this in a keynote. I haven't yet, but I'm going to use it. Love and accountability. I mean, my family knows I love them, but like I walked in the other day and my son's working with me now. His girlfriend handles my social media and they were just sitting around not doing what they were supposed to do. And I go, guys, we got to get to work. I mean, again, I get that training camp mentality. I go, listen right now, I will fire my family. I want you to know this. I will fire my family. I said, I love you. You'll always be my family, but I will fire you. You will no longer work for me. And I looked back on that. It was a great moment because their eyes got really big. And I thought about what I did. I will fire my family. Now, is that the most positive thing I could say in that moment? No, not at all. But they woke up. It did hold them accountable in that moment. I earned a lot of love along the way to be able to do that. I just look back and thought about how I got frustrated in that moment.
No, it's funny.
And I said, I will fire them. And of course, we talked like a couple hours later on different things. But in that moment, I was like, I will fire my family.
Well, but it makes me laugh though, because I think this stuff is like you're tripping over the truth for some people right now, because that's how people feel. And I think a lot of times in maturity and leadership, it's not even that you have these like outbursts. Some people do have outbursts. I don't really have big outbursts like that, but I got a lot of outbursts on the inside.
Yeah.
And I think that it's like, I don't want to just project peace. I want to actually have peace.
Yes.
I don't want to just keep my mouth shut and suppress. I want to actually go, why do I have all this going on in the inside? And some of it's just language. I think that I'm excited about this book because anytime people are helping me articulate and creating buckets and creating ways for me to engage or interact with a difficult situation, when you first start something, a small business or a church, it is we're all family around here. You're doing everything together.
Right.
As our church has grown, I think there's so many family aspects to our staff and team, but I've had to be pretty intentional going, hey guys, we're actually a team.
Right.
Because in reality, I'm not going to fire my family unless they actually work for me. I'm not at that stage. I just got these 4 kids, but like,
No,
you know,
never fire
my wife,
family.
my wife doesn't come in. I'm not like, let's go through your performance chart and let's see, you know, if you've met all of your, you know, KPIs. But you do with people that are on a team. And so I like the language team because we are a team and we have a mission and we're trying to accomplish a goal. And you get to choose if you want to be here and how you want to be here. I try to be unapologetic around the mission that we're attempting and say, hey, this is what I'm about. This is the direction that I'm in. You are invited on this journey, but you really are going to be the one if you choose to whether or not you want to be here. And so I just appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that because listen, the power is not in the presentation.
Yeah.
It's in the participation. It's not just what I say. It's do I live out what I say? And we can teach something, but then to do it is really where, you know, the genius comes in and where the synergy begins to happen.
And being real, being authentic and letting people know, like I am all my talks now. It resonates so much when I say I am not naturally positive. Guys, I'm up here talking about this. You know me for this. And yet let me tell you something. I struggle with it.
It's very good.
And this is my journey. This is how I know positive leadership is the way forward. And it's not Pollyanna positive. It's not about seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. It's knowing that you have the power to overcome the thorns. And I say, let me tell you how positive leaders elevate people, places, and performance.
Bars.
People, places, and performance. How do you do that, right? You've got to work on yourself first. You got to lead yourself and then to lead others. You got to become someone that people want to follow. And the way you can do that is to be vulnerable and real and say to your team, hey, I struggle with this. I need to work on this. I need to get better. We sat around as a family and I said, okay, what could I have done better as a dad? And my kids laid it on what I could have done better when they were growing up. And it was a great healing conversation. Like we talked about what I could have done better, what we could have done better. And overall, I listened. I said, you're right. I wish I would have, not put so much pressure on you when you were an athlete. I wish I wasn't always, talking about the game afterwards. If I can go back, parents, do not talk about the game or the performance or the musical performance or the theater. Don't talk about it afterwards. Let it be what it is in that moment.
Very helpful.
If they want to talk about it, then you talk about it. Otherwise, don't bring it up. Let them bring it up. Because we often talk about it. Kids don't want to talk about it. They're moving on to the next thing. And so there's so much advice that I now give based on my own mistakes. So it's made me better. And I always say, I can't change my past, but I can help you create your future.
John, you're always such a breath of fresh air.
Thanks, brother.
When I get in your presence and your company, thank you for living the life that you do. Thank you for inspiring so many people. And I'm really pumped about this latest book. I mean,
I can't wait for you to read it. I can't wait for people to read this. I mean, it really is a game changer. It's going to be a defining book for teams to read together. And after they read it, they are going to become stronger. Like I wrote this so that teams will become stronger together. And when you make these 7 commitments as a team, you can't not become stronger and more united and get to know each other better. And the beautiful thing about this is instead of being disconnected, as we talked about, moving towards dysfunction, you'll move towards healing and growth. And that's the whole goal why I wrote it.
I'm going to do the 5 H's on my next Monday operations.
Let's go.
Everyone, who's your hero, bro? Why don't I know this? Give me your greatest hardship. How have I been working with you this long? I don't know your greatest hardship, but it's really beautiful stuff. And we're just grateful for you. Thank you for all the stuff that you're doing. You got to come down to Miami. Next time we won't be out in the woods somewhere. All the guests that show up to these things are like, where in the heck did Rich bring me out to? But you're a real one, bro.
Let's go.
Strong Island.
Let's go. Strong Island,
Hey,
baby.
Strong Island, baby.
This is nothing.
This is Jon Gordon, friends. Go get his book, The 7 Commitments of a Great Team. But man, anything that Jon's ever written has been a blessing in my life. The 2 of his earlier projects, No Complaining Rule and Energy Bus. I did not know that Energy Bus continues to be his bestseller, but you need to get that if you're a leader out there. It's going to help you mature. And of course, like I said, we're going to end the way we started. Get to VOUSCon, yo. It's going to be a really special time. And I don't know how many more of these we got out in the RV, but we're having a great time out here. And we love you guys. Leave us some comments, any kind of questions we can answer around leadership, life, anything. We all like to try to read through those and get feedback. So we appreciate you guys. And there's always more coming right here on Mature Me. See ya.